Hello, everyone. My name is Julia, and I'm a youth and climate analyst within UNDP's Youth Global team based in New York. Welcome to the second episode of UNDP's Youth Climate Tour, a dialogue series that we launched last week in North Macedonia. The aim of these country dialogues is to feature UNDP's work on climate in partnership with youth stakeholders across different countries and regions in the lead up to Youth for Climate Driving Ambition Summit in Milan and pre-COP and COP26 events coming up later this year. Through these weekly dialogues, UNDP aims to hear about examples of UNDP support to youth meaningful participation in climate action across different countries and regions, present and brainstorm on methodologies for youth engagement at the national and local level, identify successful stories, promising practices, and entry points for enhanced support, collaboration, and joint implementation in the context of UNDP's climate promise and beyond. These dialogues only last 30 minutes, and we invite colleagues and partners to be concise and to the point. The recording of this conversation will be published in UNDP for Youth YouTube channel and Spark Blue page. The outcome of this series will be featured in climate promise reports where relevant, newsletters and updates, and captured in a CRISP report that will be published on our UNDP's Spark Blue page. I will now give the floor to our colleague based in UNDP office in Rwanda, who will facilitate the remaining 25 minutes of this dialogue together with the youth partners. We remind colleagues to give some time at the end to answer any questions we might receive from participants. So over to you, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Good morning, colleagues. Good afternoon. Can you see the presentation on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to start quickly by introducing myself. My name is Nicolas Schmitz, and I work as a program analyst for the UNDP Rwanda country office, and I'm in charge of the youth portfolio. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today to share the experience of Rwanda in engaging young people in climate change adaptation. So just to start the presentation, I just wish to give you a brief overview of the Rwandan context, and especially how does climate change impact Rwanda and what is the national climate resilience strategy. So in terms of climate change, I think it's very similar to many African countries. Rwanda has been actually very impacted by the impact of climate change. If you look at the evolution over the last 40 years, since 1970, there's been a 1.4 degree increase in temperature. And by 2030, we expect an increase of 2 degrees. So it has some concrete impact on the country, including a severe impact on the agriculture production and productivity, as climate change has been influencing crop yields. It makes also certain regions more susceptible to malaria. And there's been over the last decades rapid change in terms of amount of precipitation, which is also resulting in issue in terms of agriculture, with the raining season being have been changed. And what we've been also seeing is an increase in the occurrence and the impact and magnitude of the natural disaster, and especially droughts and floods. So what is the strategy, the Rwandan strategy to tackle and to adapt to climate change? So Rwanda has a long-term vision 2050, and in the vision 2050 is embodied really the need to ensure a sustainable path of development, which include the sustainable use of and management of natural resources, but also building resilience to cope with climate change impact, which means that Rwanda aims at basically achieving a carbon neutral and climate resilient economy. So in order to do so, the country has a 5 years development plans, but also a green growth and climate resilience plans. And the objective of Rwanda, who signed the Paris Agreement and was the first country to submit the revised nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement, is to cut its carbon emission by 38% by 2030. So it's a very ambitious plan, and how Rwanda wants to do that. The first major key is on electricity. Rwanda has been investing massively in renewable energy over the last decades. We are now at 53% of the total electricity that is generated by renewable energy, and especially hydro electricity and solar energy. And the goal is to reach at least 60% by 2030. So how does Rwanda do that is also through a very innovative homegrown solution, which is a Fonerwa. It's basically a green fund that was established in 2012 and that aim at financing some climate resilience and green economy projects, including projects in renewable energy. So far, the project has funded more than 42 projects. It's basically big projects and has created more than 140,000 green jobs, as well as providing access to more than 61,000 households with off-grid clean energy. Another strategy for Rwanda to tackle climate change is massive investment in protected areas. So Rwanda has about 30% of its cover is cover that is, it's forest cover in Rwanda, sorry. And a last component in this investment in clean transportation. For instance, recently UNDP has been supporting the government of Rwanda in developing electronic motorcycles. So we've been retrofitting some motorcycles, so the investment in clean transportation, but also very strict measures in terms of pollution for transport. So UNDP, Rwanda, we've been very, of course, supportive in this strategy, notably by giving technical support to the government of Rwanda in defining and developing those strategies and implementing. We've been supporting the implementation of Fonerwa, which is these green funds, but also we've been supporting the youth, and that's the objective of today's dialogue series, is how we've been supporting young people engaging in climate change. So UNDP, we've been actually one of the key program we've been supporting is the Youth Connect initiative. So Youth Connect was initiated in Rwanda in 2012, and it's a platform aimed at creating socio-economic opportunities for young people. So it aims at addressing all the challenges faced by the youth in a very multi-sectorial way. So the Youth Connect aims at empowering young people in every aspect of their life. So as creating socio-economic opportunities, but also helping them in civic education and leadership, awareness raising, but also a health component, as well as connecting young people together. And one of the key components of the Youth Connect Rwanda initiative now, it's engaging young people, especially in environmental protection and climate change adaptation activities. So it's done through different activities. One of them is about engaging young people in rehabilitation of a damaged ecosystem. And we have now initiated the Ecobrigade Initiative, which is an initiative aimed at creating decent employment opportunities for the youth in environmental protection and climate change adaptation activities. So we help young people to actually give them skills in rehabilitation, and they sign some contract with the landowners to rehabilitate the ecosystem. So we talk about rehabilitation of river banks, but also reforestation activities. And so far, this component has created more than 8,000 jobs. Another component is the Youth Connect month and holiday program. So during the school break in Rwanda, that is November, December, January, we work with the young people through the National Youth Council and the Youth Cooperative. And we basically organize different activities aimed at engaging young people within their communities. So they're going to get involved in community building activities that is related to climate change adaptation. So it's about helping to build irrigation channel, reforestation activities, ecosystem rehabilitation. Another component as well is we help young people, and I'll have the pleasure after to give the floor to one of our beneficiaries, is we help young entrepreneurs, young innovators to develop innovative solutions that contribute to climate change adaptation and mitigation. So we've been supporting young entrepreneurs now since 2012. And we work with different partners, including civil society organization, private sector, government entities, all together based on the expertise and experience. And we build the capacities of our young entrepreneurs in entrepreneurship, in pitching skills, in access to finance. And we also give them some seed funding. So it's also technical and financial support to help them to establish their business. And we've been supporting more than 1,500 young entrepreneurs since 2012. And more than half of them actually have project that is related to the green economy. So it's been it's been really contributing to support young projects addressing climate change. And lastly, another component of that we've been investing is actually supporting young people in engaging in climate resilience agriculture. So here we support young people in providing with them the technical skills, but also the tools so that they can engage in a climate resilience agriculture project. So that is in brief what UNDP has been doing in engaging young people in climate change. And to make it more concrete, I have the pleasure to give the floor to one of our beneficiaries, which is Ange Imanishimwe. So Ange has been actually creating a project in the Nyungwe forest. So Nyungwe forest is our main tropical forest in the southwest of Rwanda. That is home to chimpanzees and a series of primates. It's a tropical forest that, as you know, is one of the major carbon sink. And Ange has been developing a project that combines that work with the community in living next to the forest in how to combine forest conservation, biodiversity conservation, but also community development by creating livelihood opportunities for the communities. And Ange actually won the Youth Connect Bootcamp Award in 2012. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to give the floor to Ange so that he can also share his experience.
But yeah, it's fantastic to have this opportunity to discuss how the youth in Rwanda is engaged in climate change mitigation and adaptation. First of all, I want to say that we started our initiative in 2012 after completing our studies as young people in the rural areas of Rwanda. So we were thinking, how can we give back to the community? Actually, our community was really very vulnerable to climate change because we are based in the southwestern of Rwanda, and it is a very mountainous area where you can see that there are a lot of landslides. You can see that there is a big issue of erosion because, of course, of heavy precipitations. So because of the bad experience of climate change, our communities have been affected, at a very tremendous level. So that's why we said, because I have been at school, we have to do something. And that is when we start to. Okay, thank you so much. So I was saying that we started our initiative to mitigate and adapt to climate change issues in 2012. When we were completing our studies as the young people in the rural areas of Rwanda. So we said, what can we do to make sure that we can give back to our communities? Because we are based in the southwestern of Rwanda, that is where, climate change was really affecting the people because it is in a very mountainous area. And because of the heavy precipitations, you could see some huge erosions, landslides, and you can see that some people are even losing their lives. Then we said, as young people, we have to come up with some solutions and making sure that we can help our communities. Then we started in 2012, and we were 68 young people coming from different backgrounds in terms of academic, but also considering the people who have not been at school, but who have some talents. Then we said, this is our time to give back. And our organizations, of course, started in that year of 2012. So after starting immediately, there was a program with UNDP in partnership with the government of Rwanda, of Youth Connect, in which they were inviting, young people who have achieved some things in their communities. And that is when, my organization was selected, and they went to Kigali to do a presentation of what we are achieving. And because we are engaging the people who were poachers before in biodiversity conservation, but of course, engaging, the youth in a climate change mitigation and adaptation, we managed to present our project, and then we were the first, the top young innovator of Rwanda in 2012, and in the partnership of UNDP and the Ministry of Youth and ICT, we got an award, and I can estimate that it was an award of 4,000 US dollars. So that award really helped our organization now to have everything needed, including the policies, including the website, and of course to be visible to everyone and to start to inspire, our fellows in other parts of the country, including the Eastern Province, where you could see a lot of dryouts, which were also affecting the people. So what I want to say here is that that funding, that seed funding, was like a booster to what we were doing, because at that time, that is when we started also to engage more youth in the conservation of Unyungwe National Park. Following this, I can also add that in 2013, after setting BioCore, that was a program of UNDP in Kigali, and it was in a global environmental facility, JEF SGP. There was a problem in Nyungwe. Because of climate change, you could see that the people didn't have some food, and some of others were very poor. And because of that, they were taking the alternative to go to Nyungwe National Park for destroying the forest and destroying the biodiversity. So the forest suffered a lot. And because the people were encroaching it, they were even spreading the invasive plant species, including eucalyptus, including cupressus in the forest. And those exotic trees were out competing the indigenous forest. And because of that issue, the forest started to decrease, and the biodiversity started to decrease. So that is when we said, it's a problem now if we don't take some actions. Climate change and the poor, the poverty will affect the forest, and we can end up by not even having, any biodiversity. So that is when now we sent a proposal to UNDP in the SGP, and then we got the grant of 45,000 US dollars in 2013 to remove the invasive and exotic tree species from Unyungwe National Park. I can remember that during that time, we created more than 120 jobs to the people, including those who were poachers before. And of course, we're even engaging the women, in restoring and rehabilitating the ecosystem, because we have read that women also were part of, poaching activities, because they were, entering the forest as husbands. Then that work was very important, because more than 68 hectares in Nyungwe were restored and rehabilitated, and we did the monitoring, and we realized that we were really successful in restoring the park. So in a few words, I can tell you that, we are based, of course, at the grassroots level, and you have a number of initiatives.
Apologies, colleagues. Ange is, I think, trying to connect.
No problem. I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, it's such an interesting project. It's very pity that we're losing him.
Maybe in the meantime, let's take the question that is specifically related to Rwanda.
Yes. So I read one so far on the issue of hydropower. So I'm not like an energy specialist. I know that hydropower is very it's a big debate, especially the negative and positive impact. I think everyone heard about the ongoing discussion on the Nile and Ethiopia building a major dam. I know that in Rwanda, most of the hydropower plants that have been built are actually micro hydropower, mainly to provide energy for the local population. So, and there is no current studies on the negative impact of hydropower in Rwanda, but we haven't heard any negative impact. I mean, The challenge is Rwanda, we are a landlocked country. We have access to, we don't have any major, we don't have access to the sea. We are landlocked. We don't have much resources. So Rwanda is trying to do its best with this given the situation. So in the last decade, we've been investing massively in solar panel, but also hydropower is one of the major source of electricity generation in Rwanda. It contributes to 221 million watts, and it has currently 22 power stations. But especially it provides a solution for people in the remote areas. That is currently a very challenge, because right now there is still nearly half of the 47% of the Rwandans who don't have access to electricity, mainly in the rural areas. So hydropower is one of the a solution for those people. So this is what I can say. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned on the issue of hydropower in Rwanda.
Great. I'm responding to Jishnu on the question from India. Thank you very much. Is there any other question specifically to our colleagues in Rwanda? Thank you very much for the presentation. We know it's a little bit short, and we're really sorry we missed part of the presentation of Ange, but maybe we can capture that at another moment as well, and we'll certainly be happy to receive written points if that's easier. Thank you. So Ange is back, Julia?
Yes,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Let's give you back the floor for 5 minutes or 3 minutes.
I'm very sorry. I don't know what happened. So I was just talking on our initiative here in Rwanda regarding how we are coping with climate change. But in a few words, what I want to say is that, of course, we are integrating biodiversity conservation and community development around Nyungwe National Park to make sure that we can engage communities in the conservation, because the communities we were working for were vulnerable to climate change because of the heavy rains, precipitation, and so on. So I think I said, and you got to know that the initiative was started in 2012 to, of course, by engaging the youth in the climate change mitigation and adaptation. And the three strategies were in place. Number one was the capacity building for the young people, telling them why you have to contribute to the community. That is the strategy number one. Number two was now to create alternatives to the people living around the park to find, the food, the basic needs, the health insurance, so that they can at least be healthy at a basic way. That is what we did. And doing that, of course, we were using the resources that are available in our community, but also connecting with the people, like UNDP, like the Ministry of Youth in Rwanda, to see how they can support our work. And I mentioned that in 2013, we got a grant of 45,000 US dollars, from UNDP in GEF, Global Environmental Facility, to remove the invasive and exotic tree species, from the park, so that you can restore it. We did this because climate change affected the people, and the people didn't have, enough food, because when there are some heavy rains, sometimes there are landslides and there are some erosion. And when the people go to cultivate, you can see that the crop yields are becoming very low. And when they don't have something to eat, for them, they were taking the bad decision to go to the forest to rely in the resources, in Nyungwe Park. Nyungwe Park is a very diverse forest that you have in this country, and it is providing 70% of the water use in the whole country. So which means that, of course, it is a very important biome that you have to conserve. So when they were there in that way, they were encroaching, they were cultivating, and at the same time spreading the invasive and exotic tree species. And those kind of species, when they reach in a natural ecosystem, they grow so fast. They outcompete the indigenous species, and it was a problem. And that is why Biocore took a decision, of course, to mobilize the funding so that you can remove those species so that the forest can be healthy. So we did that, and we prioritized to give jobs to the people who were poachers before, but also to the young people so they can have, finances to help even their communities, but also to understand why it is very important to conserve, but also to integrate that with entrepreneurship, to tell people that always entrepreneurship is not about going to the market, buying and selling beans, but also there is a way that you can do the green entrepreneurship, that you can do the business in the conservation arena, but also that you can develop a business model based on the climate issues. So that is what we did. And we created more than 100 jobs in that time, but also restored the ecosystems on more than 80 hectares. And from that, we continued our work, and the international community, recognized our work. And that is why in 2015, I was invited by the President of the United States of America to go to the US to learn what they do, but also to share my experience. I did that at University of California in Berkeley, but also I was sharing my experience at Yale University in Connecticut, showing how our communities at the grassroots level manage to adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change. So I think that's what I can say for now. When we have some questions to ask, I'm ready to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Ange. I think that there's one more question for Nicolas. Nicolas, if you want to answer in the chat box. And it's about jobs that were created via Youth Connect in ecosystem rehabilitation activities. And if you can provide some examples of how these jobs were funded and
yes,
how long they last. Over to you.
Thank you, Julia. So, so this is only the number of jobs that were created through ecosystem rehabilitation activities. And how we work is we help young people to set into cooperatives. Once they are set in cooperatives, we help them to connect them with landowners. And we work in raising awareness to the landowners on the need of rehabilitating their ecosystems and the benefits that it is for their activities, whether it's about disaster risk reduction activities to avoid floods and so destroy the crops, or terracing work or reforestation, how it's going to help to consolidate the land, how it's going to help to increase the productivity of the soil. So we work with the landowners to raise them awareness, and basically it's the landowner who contract those young people in rehabilitating these ecosystems. So this is how the model work, and the jobs are therefore funded by the owner of the lands themselves. And basically, those are in terms of how long do they typically last. So it's an initiative that we started in 2019, and we piloted in 3 districts. And given its great success, now we're starting to roll out across the whole country, and it's a very successful one. It includes partnership with the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Local Governance, the district authorities, the Rwanda Management Authority, the local development authorities, as well as the Rwandan Defense Forces. So it's actually a series of stakeholders being together. And so far, those jobs, they have been 2 years old. So yes. So then in what is the strategies to ensure the sustainability? So the first step of this program was to actually help young people to get engaged in ecosystem rehabilitation. As I mentioned, we help them to set into cooperative. The second stage is actually through those cooperative. We help them, we train them in savings, but also we help them in producing, actually developing green economy. I mean, green-led SMEs. So those same young people who are involved in environmental protection, we help them to think about business ideas For instance, we use the Jacinta plant, which is an invasive species in the river. We use it to produce handicraft, or like any other. So yeah, we help basically those cooperatives to create businesses to ensure the sustainability of the livelihood opportunities that are made through environmental protection.
I can see there's a follow-up questions. Maybe you can take this last one, and then we will need to close the meeting for today. And if there are any other questions, please, participants, you can reach us on Twitter and also on the Spark Group page at UNDP for Youth. So, Nicolas, if you can just answer the last point, and then
yeah. Well, I think actually, yeah, we work with the owner of the lands, but it's both. I think it's both private and public. I don't know to what extent the percentage is. I know it's mainly private, but I also know that it's also partly own state land. So it's actually both of them.
Okay, I think we can conclude this second episode of the Youth Climate Tour. Thanks everyone for joining the discussion today on Rwanda. And next week we will continue the conversation with Malaysia, and we will give you updates and calendar invites as well. You can reach us on Sparkblue and on Twitter. Just follow the page UNDP for Youth. And you can reach us by email as well at youth@undp.org if you have any other questions and follow-up comments. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia, for organizing.
Thank you so much, Julia.